What I want to talk to you about now is deeper objection handling with your clients. And if you stay and watch through this video to the end, I'm going to take you on a journey of changing the question, shifting your philosophy, and helping you narrow down on the principle that will actually allow you to be a better service professional and also be able to handle things like client objections. Now, the first thing I want to say to you is this. Whenever you ask a question, and whenever a client asks you a question, you actually need to look at the question itself. Because if you start answering the wrong question, you'll always get the wrong answers. And this is a fundamental skill set for developing serious mastery as an advice professional. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here with this question. Handling objections. What does it mean? Just think about the wording behind the question, and then think about the intent behind the question, and then think about what the right intent for the question should be, and then let's think about reframing the question. Now, as I go through this process, I'm also helping you to fundamentally understand what a great advisor does with questions. That's your role as an advisor. And if you want to hear me talk about what an advisor's real role is, then make sure you watch the video, which I'll link wherever you're watching this, so you can check that out as well, because it's going to give you a lot of context. So what we're doing here is saying handle objections. The first thing is, why are you asking that question? Well, because if you're an advisor, if you sit down with a client and you're giving advice, first of all, there's no value to the client if they don't take your advice. So there's an impetus to understand, well, how do you actually get your clients to do the things that allow you to do your job? Now, this is where intent is important, because if your intent is just trying to get them to sign up so they can become a client and so you can meet your budgets or build your business and get paid, and if that's the concern or the fear that's driving you, you're asking the question with the wrong intent. And therefore, your ability to handle this situation correctly with a client is impaired from the outset. Now, if we think about the right intent behind this question, then it should be this. How do I get someone who's in front of me, right, that I'm speaking to, a client, how do I get them to do the things that they need to do in order to have a better life? So how do I deliver my greatest value to this person? And without me getting them to come on this journey and to follow this through, they're not better off, and therefore I'm not better off in my focus of delivering this outcome to them. Think about that as your intent. It should always be your intent. Now, once you have that, you can see how the question itself is flawed. And thinking about it from this frame of reference is actually what will limit you from handling this with clients, because it puts you into a position where that's exactly what you're thinking, handling. Handling is a reactive response. It's kind of like a throwaway turn. And then think about objections. So we're kind of trained into this philosophy of word programming, handle objections. It's a sales framing. Yes, you have to get your clients to take advice. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the process of sales, but intent is what drives the outcome. So if your intent is to help this person have a better life and to give your greatest value to them, then what you're actually asking is, how do I get someone to see where they're in their own way so that we can overcome that barrier and allow them to make the decisions they need to make a change, to get closer to where they want to be and to have a better life? That's actually what we're doing. Now, if we reframe the question that way, now we can actually see how we can answer this properly. So if you're with a client and they're throwing you up what we would think of as an objection before, what they're really doing is asking you a question. And in that question, what they're saying is, I don't have enough information. I'm not sure. I don't understand. Perhaps I don't have enough trust yet, or more importantly, and probably more likely, I have a contextual conflict with the advice that you're giving me. Now, I'm not going to go into context conflict. That's a whole topic that I talk about and deal with. And I'll cover some of this stuff in upcoming videos. But what I'm saying here is there's a blockage. And what you have to do as an advice professional is not handle it, but bring the real issue into the open. Because what a client says to you rationally on the surface, whether that's it's too expensive, or I don't have time, or I'll have to talk to my partner, or whatever the thing may be, that is almost always a rationalization for a deeper subconscious emotional issue. And your job as an advisor is to ask the right questions. And that's exactly what you have to do in order to handle objections in a much deeper, fundamental way. Ask questions. Don't just skirt over it. Don't try and convince someone. What you have to do is dig with them. Go deeper. Ask deeper questions. Get to the issue. Sometimes you may have to use your instinct and say to them, look, is this really the issue? Just even doing that and asking them that and stating it may well mean that you're wrong, but what it does is it puts the client into the right state to be able to identify with you what the real issue is. So for example, you're telling a client to, sell their property, to pay off some debt, to, restructure their assets and their borrowing facilities. And to you, it's a no-brainer. It's going to save them tens of thousands of dollars a year, whatever, right? If they have an emotional attachment to that property, as an example, perhaps their parents said to them, their father before passing away said, buy property, never let it go. And this is something they don't even consciously know, and it's embedded in there. If you haven't brought that out into the open, if you haven't dug through it and asked the right questions, then the chance of you getting your client to accept your advice, and more importantly, to actually make a realization of what's holding them back, then the value is not there. The real value of being a deep value advisor, you're missing that opportunity. And you may well miss having this client at all. So what's the simple breakdown of this? It's very simple. You don't handle anything. What you do is you have honest conversations. You have conversations where you're not afraid to push, to challenge your client. And I don't mean doing it in an aggressive way. I mean by actually being honest and saying, hey, look, I can sense that there's something going on here. My job's to help you. This is the reason why I want to help you. Can we talk it out? I'm okay for you to make whatever decision it is. My job is to help you make the right decision for you and to find your own answers. So what's the issue here? And if you're not doing that, then you're not being the best advisor you can be. And if you take this philosophy and you execute it, you will have a much greater impact with your clients. It will be so much easier to articulate your value and to get people to do the things they need to do to allow you to provide your value for them to have a better life. Thanks very much. Love to know your thoughts. Cheers.